Welcome, everyone. My name is William Tobin, and I am an assistant director here at the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center. We're here at the Global Decarbonization Accelerator Pavilion at COP28, recording a live from COP28 interview with Mauro Soares, who is the co-founder and chief executive officer of RELP. Mauro, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Will, for having me today here. It's a great honor to be able to speak about what we're doing with so much passion.
Great. Looking forward to this conversation. I think I'd like to kick it off just by asking you, why are you at COP28 and why is COP28 important for your organization? What do you hope to see from the conference this year?
Well, COP is a great place to meet people, first of all. So we're an organization that is quite young and we're developing our network. So we have to get to know a lot of people and get known. So COP is a great chance to do that. And at the same time, we're working in a very interesting project that is part of our offering. It will become part of our offering, where we will have a catalytic role in putting together a facility to provide liquidity guarantees for auctions. What we do at RELP is basically advising governments on how to design and implement auctions that are efficient and effective in terms of attracting private investment, long-term private investment at the right price for poor countries or for developing countries to not overpay for the electricity they need for the development, right? So we have that product, we call it the iTrust. And the iTrust is an idea that we have been incubating and that is well advanced at this point. And we're also looking for supporters for that idea to come to fruition.
Okay, great. I would love to delve into that a tad bit further, but just to draw it back out for a second. At this COP, we concluded the first global stocktake, and the global stocktake obviously illustrates that the world is not on track to meet its emissions targets under the Paris Agreement. So on the ground, what specific activities is your organization undertaking? I know that your organization does a lot to directly support governments. Can you just tell us a bit more about the granularity of what your organization is doing on the ground in order to action what you just mentioned as your mission?
Sure. What we do is engaging directly with governments and offering the governments basically what we would have loved to have when we were part of the government of Argentina between 2016 and 2018. And that is toolkits to solve things, information, data, analysis, right? And the experience of things that have worked and that have not worked in other markets that can be easily or difficultly adapted to the local realities. So we didn't have that at the moment. We had to do the hard work of going through all the literature, learning, cherry picking, deciding what we thought was best for the countries. We were lucky to have a great team, to be able to form a great team. When we started working for the government, there was nothing. I mean, we started the Undersecretariat for Renewables, and we were two people, Sebastian Kina, my co-founder, and myself. So we formed a team that went all the way to like 80 people, right? And we designed and implemented a successful program. Based on that experience, we decided that we didn't want to go back to the private sector, but that we wanted to share that from a nonprofit. And we funded, with the support of our funders, we funded what was called Green Map at the moment, and now we're renamed this year, we're renamed RELP. And so that is an idea that we incubated for some time, but always with the objective of providing this support from a very independent way, from a very independent position. The way to do that was through philanthropy. So we don't charge for our services. We are fully philanthropy backed and fully independently funded. So that gives us kind of a distinctive position in the space.
Great, thank you. And there's something else that you're working on that I wanted to highlight while we're speaking. You're working, as I understand it, on a fairly innovative mechanism for guarantees and how that can facilitate the deployment of more clean energy, particularly in developing and emerging markets. Would love to hear you just describe for our audience what that is and why that might be transformative in enabling more clean energy to come to market, providing low-cost electricity for consumers in emerging markets?
Great. Thank you for the question. Just to set the context, the work that we do is at the utility scale level, where we try to promote small and medium-sized projects to happen in the market that needs to be unlocked because the investment conditions and the securities for long-term are not there, right? So we need to solve for that issue. The market can start with some small size rooftop or distributed renewables. Maybe it needs that, but that's a separate business. But the government has to, in order to really scale action in the way that needs to be scaled to reach the targets, you need action at the utility scale level. And you need to cure especially one aspect of the problem, which is the counterparty risk and the political risk over the life of the offtake agreement. These projects, as you know, are front-loaded in terms of capital. All the capital is deployed up front, and investors have to wait 5, 7, 10 years to repay debt and then start repaying equity, or longer if you really want to be efficient and have low costs. How you do that in a country that changes rule or potentially changes government 4 or 5 times and doesn't have a good record? You need to guarantee somehow that the program will stand and that the government will stick to those rules. So you need to work very closely with the government in the design and in the risk allocation and in the risk mitigation. So our product comes to be embedded in an auction program. So you tackle not only utility scale, but several utility scale projects at the time. So it's programmatic in nature. It has standardized documentation, at least for most of it. And it speeds up the deployment, the time to market, and it lowers the transaction costs, right? And how we're doing that? We're building a fund that will be based offshore of the country to provide this liquidity. And we're stacking different sources of funding into that fund so that the fund can be self-sustainable in terms of its cost of running, and the guarantee can be provided for free, right? So that's very innovative.
Absolutely.
So we stack some skin in the game from the government as a first loss, some catalytic philanthropic funding in the middle, some DFI and MDB and other investors' equity in the middle, and then we complete that with some credit lines that might or might not be guaranteed by MDBs.
Okay.
That stock is revolving and making payments on behalf of the offtaker. That kind of cushions any defaults on the offtake agreement, lowers your capital requirements at the project company level, and buys time to solve issues with the local government. So it's very, very effective at doing that. And we proved that in Argentina very effectively, to the point that we mobilized 5 gigawatts for a total of $8 billion by creating a $600 liquidity fund that was fully funded by the government, but with the headroom that the most developing country governments have at this point, we cannot expect the countries to do that. So we're bringing in the philanthropists, we're bringing in the MDBs to kind of help in that, right? The donor countries, right? The richer countries that can contribute to this. So there's a lot of talk about guarantees. This is a product that can be implemented tomorrow if we want. So we're looking for support for that. And to finish, that liquidity facility buys some time for the off-taker to solve issues and the contracts not to be terminated. But if the contracts are terminated, the government or the off-taker, has to respond. Otherwise, the projects are not bankable. You don't go to a project where if your 20-year contract's terminated, you don't know what happens. So that has to be taken care of ahead. I mean, what happens if the contract is terminated? If the government or if the off-taker that's providing that support is not in a good financial shape, it might not be credible longer term. So we provide we will arrange the MDBs to take that risk partially and provide that extra comfort that some investors will need. And that also we proved to work in Argentina. The World Bank played a catalytic role in our program by supporting the government of Argentina over the 20-year period that this program has to last and be performing. So that was a game changer for our market, and we're totally convinced that it can be a game changer for several other markets in Africa, in Asia, and in Latam. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
So a quick question before we get to the final question. So do you think this will be more effective in leveraging or kind of unlocking idle capital that is out there, or would it be more effective in your mind in bringing projects from PowerPoint to final investment decision, if that makes sense?
There are two different things. There are other initiatives that are investing and also blending philanthropic funding with DFIs and other sources to provide that capital, small tickets, to go from the very risky, very early stage PowerPoint of a project in a developing country to ready to bid or ready to build or COD or financial close, right? Or even a company all the way to commercial operation. That kind of initiatives, those kind of initiatives are very needed in many markets, but they need to be complemented with some procurement or some way of monetizing those projects. So we're coming with one of the possible solutions for that monetization, which is auctions, which is a transparent way that is sustainable over time, that everybody wants to finance projects that were awarded in transparent auction. You know,
right.
So it has a lot of benefits. Those projects can also target commercial and industrial customers, you know, or mini grids. Those are different business models. We're not fully engaging at the moment, but it's what we're doing is different from that. We're working at more as what is needed to get those projects off the ground and financed long-term at low interest rates in developing countries that are risky. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you. For our last question, just a quick hit. How do we make sure that progress that's made at this COP is sustainable and carried forward into the future and able to affect COPs from here and into the next COP, COP29, COP30?
Well, it's a collective effort, right?
Sure.
So you cannot hold any individual or individual organization accountable for the progress of humanity.
Sure.
But we all need to contribute to that by playing the talk, right? By really showing the money, right? Those that have the money and need to show the money and those are like ourselves that are doing the work on the ground. We have to do our part, but we need the support, right? And we need the governments as well to be engaged, to understand what it takes and to collaborate, right? And let us help them, right? And put their part in this game, because otherwise it will be very hard to get things done. And at the pace we're going, we're not going to get there. So we had to do something different.
Okay, great. Well, Mauro, thank you so much for your time. It was great to hear more about RELP. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And I wish you a successful rest of your conference.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you.